Hi everyone, I'm Tania, and in this video we continue discussing dyslexia. I will show you tangible evidence that dyslexia is a neurobiological disorder and help dispel the myths surrounding it. But to make this real, let me introduce to you one of my students. His name is Kaito, a brilliant and witty 7-year-old from Japan, who is also dyslexic. Now, Kaito felt bullied because of his dyslexia, but he didn't fight back using words. He fought back with his actions. When his school had a science fair, he used the opportunity to help people understand what dyslexia feels like for him. And as a part of his project, he showed an fMRI scan of a dyslexic person and a non-dyslexic person reading. As a part of his project, he showed an fMRI scan of a dyslexic person and a non-dyslexic person reading. The blue lines represented the dyslexic reader and the orange line represented the non-dyslexic reader. Now the colored lines show white matter tracks. That's the brain's communication highway, or the parts that send information between different readers. Now, in typical readers, these tracks, especially in the left hemisphere, are well organized and efficient, which supports fluent word recognition and reading. And simply put, it's like driving a Lamborghini on the Autobahn. However, in dyslexic readers, these pathways, or the blue lines, often show less organization, reduced volume, or more symmetry between hemispheres. And this means that the brain may not be processing written language as smoothly or efficiently. And for the dyslexic reader, trying to read is like taking the scenic route, except that the scenic route changes from hiking in the Rockies to walking along the beach to driving a Jeep in the Sahara Desert, all to end up at the same place as the non-dyslexic reader. It also shows that the brain of the dyslexic reader takes various routes to perform the same task. However, this route often leads to frustration and exhaustion. Kaito also displayed 2 reading samples of a story we created in class using ChatGPT as a reading exercise, one with typical formatting and one that was dyslexic friendly. And as you can see, the difference was staggering. It demonstrated how standard resources often fail to support dyslexic learners, and at the same time, small adjustments like increased spacing, the use of clear fonts such as Open Dyslexic, which is one of the ones that I use often, and even changing the color of the font and the page can make a world of difference. It is important to note that experts say using clean, legible fonts with enough spacing helps reduce visible strain. Now, back to the presentation. If you ask about the outcome at the science fair, the outcome was that he didn't win, but he did something even greater. His presentation helped people see that dyslexia is real, neurological, and not a reflection of intelligence or laziness. Kaito's demonstration also made me realize how sensitive dyslexic eyes can be to crowding and how easy that through spacing, contrast, and other adjustments can really help. Now, dyslexic readers, much like the scenic route I mentioned earlier, often use around 5 times more energy to read than non-dyslexic readers to accommodate their dyslexia. And if you're still not entirely convinced, I want you to have a look at the following brain image. This brain image shows us what happens during reading. On the left, the brain image of a non-dyslexic reader activates three areas that work together smoothly. One to break down sounds, another to recognize words quickly, and one for complex processing. But on the right, the dyslexic brain, only one main area is lighting up, which is the part responsible for sounding out words, which means that the brain is doing everything the hard way, step by step. It's slower, more exhausting, and takes much more effort. It's also important to note that there are various types of dyslexia, and in a future video, I will explain the different types of dyslexia. But this explains why dyslexic readers may read more slowly, get tired quickly, and find it hard to keep up, even when they're just as smart as their peers. In addition to, studies corroborate and also have consistently found that dyslexic readers use more parts of their brain as well as different left brain reading networks compared to typical readers, confirming that dyslexia is brain-based. And because they use more parts of their brain to compensate for dyslexia, it also explains the exhaustion that dyslexic readers feel after reading even a short passage or page. In my books, I'm showing you a typical format as well as a dyslexia-friendly format. The formatting uses generous space on the page, letter spacing, line spacing, as well as different colors for the font and the page, because using stark white backgrounds, black text, and bright colors can be overwhelming for dyslexic readers, and making these changes often help ease reading. Now, there are a number of changes that we can make to the text that can help dyslexic readers, and I will introduce those to you in another video. But as parents and teachers, we often ask our kids why they don't like reading. But it's a bit like asking your child to learn to swim without giving them a flotation device or the proper training. Back to Kaito. Kaito is lucky. His mum, Dr. Ayako Kani, a psychiatrist, researcher, proud mum, and I'm happy to call her close friend of mine, has also written articles on dyslexia, helping to explain it and support parents in understanding their children. She explains that when a child says things like the letters look like they're dancing, or the words just don't sink in, it may be a sign of what she calls a dancing letters brain, which is another way of understanding dyslexia. She also explains that this has nothing to do with eyesight, intelligence, or effort. It simply means that the brain processes written language differently. And to give you my idea of what that feels like, I want you to imagine trying to read a page while ants crawl across it in different directions. Are you imagining that? Well, that distraction is similar to what many dyslexic readers experience. Now, the reference to ants on a page is purely my way of trying to understand and to make sense of what dyslexic readers sees, and not that of Dr. Kani. But she does point out that signs can appear even before reading starts. For example, a child might mix up left and right, put shoes on the wrong feet, or wear clothes backwards. And at the age when reading begins, similar looking letters and numbers can be confusing, which we often associate with dyslexia, like B and D, 6 and 9, or mirror image characters. And one of the biggest clues she highlights is this, that many children understand stories perfectly when they hear them, but struggle to read the same story themselves. Now, Dr. Kani, or Ayako as I refer to her, is also passionate about sharing the other side, and the one that we always agree on and talk about, their strengths. She says that children with dancing letters brains are often excellent auditory learners, highly imaginative, strong visual-spatial thinkers, and frequently talented in areas like art and design. Research has shown that some creative teams intentionally include people with dyslexia because they offer fresh, innovative perspectives. They are the out-of-the-box thinkers that creative teams often dream about. And I often marvel at the way my daughter thinks and processes information. Now, she also reminds parents that reading can improve over time when it's enjoyable and in an unpressurized environment. I want you to note that dyslexia isn't curable, and improving a child's reading does not imply that they are cured. Dyslexia is a lifelong condition, but skills can be learned to support your child. How you can support your child, you ask, is by remembering that picture books, comics, games, they all count. Take turns reading, use audiobooks, increase spacing, font size, or following with a finger while they're reading can make reading feel much easier and less stressful. But most importantly, Dr. Kani stresses that these children are not lazy and are not lacking effort. Their brains simply work differently. But with patience, encouragement, and the right support, they can thrive. Her message is simple and heartfelt. Children with dancing letters brain have just as much potential, creativity, brilliance as any other child. And she says, when we walk beside them, supporting them without the pressure they often feel, they can discover their own way of reading in their own time. And I personally can attest to this because my daughter, who hated reading and actively avoided reading for most of her life, has finally found the books that she loves. There's no pressure. She wants to read. She gets excited about the books. And for me, that is a win. We also need to be aware that while there are early signs that may indicate dyslexia, experts caution that letter reversals alone are common in all children learning to write. However, persistent reversals can sometimes hint at dyslexia. Dr. Kani also states that early intervention is key to supporting a dyslexic reader. Research has also shown that early structured reading intervention can greatly improve outcomes for dyslexic children. In other words, the sooner we identify dyslexia and start evidence-based support, the better kids can do. Now, if you suspect your child is dyslexic, please seek help and intervention. But a proper diagnosis must come from a qualified professional. Remember, early intervention is key, but intervention should be tailored to your child. Dyslexia is not a one-size-fits-all condition. Some people experience mild dyslexia, while others experience severe dyslexia. Please seek guidance from a registered professional and support your child today. I hope you found this information helpful. and that you feel less overwhelmed or fearful about how to help your dyslexic child. And in support of every person who experiences dyslexia, let's continue Kaito's and this channel's objective of helping people learn about and understand dyslexia. I want you to send this to your child's teacher, to your child's school, friends, family member, or community center, and spread the word to dispel the myths of dyslexia so that people who are dyslexic do not have to continue feeling that they are perceived as different. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and send it to other parents who are traveling the same journey and need support. I'm very excited about the next video. I'm going to go through and help you create activities you can do with your child to best support them as they navigate their dyslexic world. I hope you have a great day. Until next time, bye.